Hi, everyone, and welcome to this year's Summer Speaker Series hosted by Sony Pictures Animation and Asians in Animation. I'm Andrea Lau-Kutcher. I'm the Executive Director of Asians in Animation, and I'll be moderating and leading today's panel. Sony Animation started this speaker series back in 2021 as a way to provide partner organizations like Asians in Animation with direct access to executives and creatives from SPA, who will share insight and give you an exclusive look into the various departments at the studio. We are excited to partner with them for this series that continues through next week, so be sure to tune in next week as well for upcoming conversation on creative development. Today, our panel is titled, What is the Animation Pipeline and How to Have a Career in Production, which will be an informative talk with folks right here from our SPA production management side on their journeys into animation, what the animation pipeline is, and how to run an efficient animation pipeline, and what being great looks like as a person in production management. So if you're among those looking to enter the production side of the animation industry, you're in the right place. So without further ado, let's get into it. So on today's panel, we have our lovely panelists here, and I'm gonna allow each one to introduce themselves. So we'll kick it off with Michelle Wong.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Wong. I'm currently the producer on K-pop Demon Hunters, which is a feature film, and K-pop Demon Hunters is our working title. I started at Sony Animation. I was one of the first employees here. I started 22 years ago as the assistant to the president of the studio. I worked my way up, moving on to other production jobs such as coordinator, Viz Dev coordinator on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Viz Dev prod soup, and editorial prod soup on Hotel Transylvania 1. And I moved up to be the production manager on Hotel Transylvania 2. And then have produced 3 movies here, Surf's Up 2, Vivo, and now K-pop Demon Hunters. Thank you.
Awesome. And next up, we have RJ Palisoc.
Hey everybody, I was actually just going to give a short blurb, but now that Michelle said all that, I think I have to fill in a few things. So I am the line producer for Motel Transylvania, the spinoff for Hotel Transylvania here at SPA. And I started my career as a 29-year-old intern at Marvel Animation. And this was before they were this big thing that they were. It was shortly after the bankruptcy. So I cut my teeth there. And from there, I moved up the ranks, and I did a bunch of live action stuff, went to post, and worked for Netflix, Legendary, and now Sony. And now I'm here.
Awesome. And next we have Sarah Kujubu.
Hi, everyone. Sarah Kujubu. I'm a production manager on Ghostbusters. I started out at a small animation studio, moved over to Nickelodeon, then DreamWorks, and now Sony.
And last but not least, we have Garrett Alura.
Hey guys, my name's Garrett. I am a production coordinator. I actually have more of a background with live action. That's what I went to school for, but my first job was in animation at a small studio called Lex and Otis. I worked on Arc, the animated series, and found my way over here. It's been amazing and just excited to see what else can happen.
Awesome. So those are our panelists for today, everybody. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just put out some questions that we have prepared for our panelists just for the first 45 minutes. And then for the last 45 minutes of the panel, we are going to open it up to audience Q&A. So if you see there's a little Q&A box down at the bottom, please feel free to use this area to put in your questions as the panel goes on. Please try to not put the questions in the chat as they might get lost. Let's get started. So I'm just going to put out a general question, and for everybody here, we'd love to have you chime in and get the ball rolling. So kind of a little bit of a free for all. So I guess everybody here has a different story and are at different levels in production management. So I guess what was your career path into animation? I'm going to kick it off to Sarah first.
What was my career path in animation? So I actually studied traditional 2D animation and some CG in college, and I thought I wanted to become a 2D traditional animator. Upon moving out to California, I realized that that probably wasn't the best idea that I had. So I kind of fell into a bunch of like biz dev internships. I was applying for a lot of production internships, and I just fell into a production internship at a small studio. And what's great about a small studio is you do everything. So you're your own PA, PC, PM. I really learned that I could manage multiple different projects at the same time. So that was definitely a game changer for me. And from there, going over to Nickelodeon, I got to see the pre-production end of a project at a big studio. And then I kind of got to learn the script coordinating side there, the post-production side there, and that helps me to this day.
Mhm.
Awesome. What about you, RJ? I know you said you started off at Marvel, so a little bit different of a beginning for you.
But also similar. I went to art school, found out how sensitive I was to critique. Um, and then I had the opportunity to get a bunch of internships, and I did a couple, but I was presented with NBC at that time, NBC Universal and Marvel Animation, and I grew up collecting comic books and drawing and all that stuff. So of course I went to Marvel Animation. And yeah, it was a great learning experience. The same exact thing. It's like if you can get into a company that will allow you to learn as much as possible, you can pretty much just get so much experience in such a small amount of time, and from there everything else is just, oh yeah, I did that, and that's kind of how I went through my career. Oh, I did that, but I like to learn this thing. So yeah, that's how I started.
And I know, Michelle, you also mentioned that you started at SPA way back in the beginning and as the assistant to the president. So, how was that journey for you, and how did you navigate kind of your career?
Um, it was challenging. Like my intention really wasn't, when I first arrived at SPA, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I consider myself a late bloomer. I mean, similar to RJ and Sarah, I also went to art school for graphic design at Otis Parsons, but learned pretty quickly after 5 years that it wasn't really for me. And then I transitioned to working at a veterinary hospital because I love animals. And not really understanding my career path. And because I'm old, there wasn't CG animation at the time. So, as I worked my way through life, I fell into this job here as an executive assistant, but quickly realized that what I do well is my interaction with people, as well as being able to understand production timeline, multitasking, and with my art background, I do have a love for art and visuals. So knowing that I'd be working in an animation pipeline was super exciting for me. But navigating my career throughout animation has been definitely challenging, not only because I'm a woman, but also because I'm Asian. And during that time, when I started, there were very few studios. So it was like, stu you know, the major studios with only one movie a year. So there wasn't opportunity for growth quickly either. So it took a long time, I think, for me to move up. And I feel like anyone interested in production management these days have more of an opportunity to move up quickly.
Definitely.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, of course. And Garrett, I know that you studied music when you were in college. So tell us about how you went from music and to where you are now.
Oh man, well in college I tried a lot of different things, music being one of them. and started out vocal performance and then turned into stage production, audio engineering. And along the way, I saw that I did love it, but I wasn't in love with it. Um, and also found new hobbies in photography and more visual art. And so somewhere down the line, I thought, what if I just put, the sound and imagery parts of my interests together, and I found film production. I think the great thing about how I went through school, even though it took me way longer than I would like to admit, is that I tried everything already. So now being here, I know there's no doubt that this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. So it's just full steam ahead at this point.
Awesome. And I know amongst everybody here, we have different experiences within the series pipeline and the feature film pipeline. So I would love to touch on that and just kind of get your insight as to what experience you have. I know, Sarah, you've worked mostly in series, correct?
Yeah.
So how have you enjoyed that, and how is the pacing of your typical day and just your overall pipeline and your schedule?
I feel like my typical day is handling anything that pops up. So like yesterday, I thought today I would be doing ABC. And then when I got into today, I'm like, got it, XYZ it is. So it's just that's how it is. You're just really flexible in what you're handling. That wasn't a lot of specifics, but I feel like that's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, I feel like for production that it seems very in character, where you think you're gonna, be working on something and then you just kind of put out fires the rest of the day. So,
Yeah.
um,
Oh,
Michelle and go ahead, Garrett. Do you want to?
no, I was just giggling. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
no,
I
I was
mean,
gonna
I
say,
agree with Sarah in the way that that's what we do. That's like one of our skill sets is being able to pivot, make decisions quickly, and with a good face. Like I know that that the team that's really close to me can see my frustrations probably more than I like, but I also feel like, you know, as a producer and as in production management, our job is to diffuse situations and lead the department and support the crew with an even temperament. And that's not easy all the time. And that's a skill that you learn over time.
absolutely. I feel like a lot of times people say series moves a lot faster than feature films. Would you say that is kind of correct based on the experience you've had?
Me, yes, personally, yeah. It's just a different pipeline. Story is locked early and there isn't much room for change after that, but it's fast. Feature, it's drawn out over years. Um, and I don't know if one or the other is better. I think, obviously feature has a longer road to crafting the story and the visuals. But I think it's a personal preference as far as what you prefer to work in.
Definitely. Um, RJ, I know you've worked at multiple different types of studios. How would you say your experience is based on all the studios you've worked with? Um, yeah, I know
Yeah,
it's
in general, and I wanted to make a comment on the series feature thing as well, but Michelle mentioned, it was a bit difficult to kind of move up in feature, and in general, from my point of view, also it's also just the length of time that a feature is being made, and in TV, there's just much more opportunity because it's so fast paced. There's much more opportunity to move up and gain knowledge, move up, gain knowledge, move up. Shows typically last 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years, and so after being a PA for a couple of years, you can probably move on to becoming a coordinator after that, if you've gained enough knowledge. But yeah, in general, I moved around a lot because I was interested in a lot of things in production. Once I got that production bug, I was like, oh, this is how you make an animated series. How do you make a music video? How do you make this? How do you make that? So I was very interested in making stuff. And I will say that out of all the studios that I worked for, Sony has been really great in allowing me to be part of all of the different facets of production and creative production. So whereas most companies, because there was already a regimented pipeline, you were just kind of stuck in your lane and you had to really reach out. And I think Netflix and Spa are actually proponents of that, and it's been a great experience here so far.
Awesome. I also want to kind of touch on a little bit of that creative aspect you were mentioning, RJ. Would you recommend anyone who's interested in art, story, writing, or even directing to work in production? I know it's kind of not the same realm, but would you find it to be beneficial for anyone with those interests?
Yeah, please chime in, guys. But what I want to say is there are two reasons why you want to do that. One is production loves working with a creative person who understands production. You don't have to explain so much. They understand that it's a whole team effort and everybody is counting on you, and so that's the best aspect of it. And as far as the second point, I think understanding how things are made, if you have creative aspirations yourself, you can create it yourself. You can use that skill to branch out and make stuff yourself. So, which is why I was interested in how to create all sorts of things in all sorts of different mediums.
Definitely, like RJ was saying, like if you have a background in production, we can tell because you're thinking like 2 departments ahead. Like you can always see with like someone saying, "Oh, how do you want me to set up my file so that it's easier for the partner studio?" And I'm just like, "What?" It's a very pleasant surprise. And I think,
I
yeah, especially if
also,
you want to create your own show, you should know the pipeline because then you know what notes you can or can't give at certain stages.
Mhm.
Sorry,
I
Michelle, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, sorry. I think too, like on the reverse of that, like, all of us here, we have some type of art, music background. So for us as production management, I feel more sympathetic to artists and the way that they think and how they react to situations, which I think is helpful because I feel like I'm more empathetic to artists in general.
I think having an artist background for me definitely helps me understand certain technical aspects, like because I've had to work in After Effects, I've had to work in those different softwares. I'm just like, oh, okay, when my lead is telling me I have to do this before I
Mhm.
do this, because then I can render this for you. I'm like, oh, that's right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it helps you intelligently manage the crew.
Yeah.
And you're not just pushing for deadlines. You're not just like, I need it now. It's like, okay, I understand it. You're going to need a week. All right. And then you built it in your schedule. And um, managing people is managing personalities. So if you understand more about the process, uh, everyone's just happier.
Absolutely. I kind of want to roll that into the different challenges you all face as production management. And if you have any advice for people either aspiring to be in production or already in production, just typical day-to-day challenges that you find different solutions to uh, solve.
What's that one? Could you elaborate on that question?
Yeah. So I guess instead of focusing on the challenges, let's talk about what you enjoy most about working in production. And if there's anything, maybe the challenges are solving puzzles, or maybe there are challenges that you face that, you wish that you could, like when you were younger in your career, that, you could tell yourself back then, oh man, it's okay, keep going. But I guess my question is all over the place, but let's start with, what do you enjoy most about production?
Definitely the people for me. I think I enjoy it the most, but it's also the most challenging.
Ah,
100%.
Yeah, that's the same thing all across the board for me. I think, like Michelle said earlier, getting into this business, I found out that I really love working with people. Uh, and it's the communication, it's the collaboration of multiple people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different everything, and then going, how do we work together to create this awesome product, you know? And every time you succeed in communicating something that's hard, or something clicks for somebody, it's just a satisfying feeling. I think it's very fulfilling.
I think
Also,
something that's becoming more and more clear the longer that I go through this is just the love and joy of the ambiguity of it all. I've seen a lot of things just look one thing one day, and then the next day it all goes out the window, and we just have to start over. But the team you have together can really help put all of it in perspective and help you rally all together. And I think those skills, the multitasking, the flexibility, the pivoting, just helps even outside of this job, even outside of this career. You know, I've seen people take all of these skills and use it towards planning their own wedding or use it towards planning their personal goals, stuff like that. And, you know, it can get frustrating, just like any job, but when it works, it is so satisfying.
Yeah, I think too, just, being able to have a team and a crew and creating something together is, there's joys in every department, every step of the way, and to see something start from a script or a pitch all the way to the end is incredibly satisfying. Um, and then, being for me, like just being at a studio like Sony Animation, I've come and gone a couple times, and having the support of the studio, and working with my crew as well as other colleagues on other shows, I've fostered lifelong friendships with people here, and I don't take that lightly. It's not in every case, and so I think not only the ups and downs of dealing with personalities and all that is still far more rewarding.
Mhm.
Knowing all the people that I've interacted with and who I really consider my closest friends.
absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna take the first audience question that we have. It's from Alec. And so Alec has asked, what would be your advice for people to stay motivated as they try to break into the industry? What helped you when you were facing a lot of rejection in your profession?
I mean, for me, like there's no doubt that there was challenges along the way, and to find uh, someone that you can connect with in the industry and continue and foster a relationship with, and reaching out to people like myself, or anyone that you're interacting with, and to keep in communication. I think that support is really helpful in those ups and downs, even if if you're on the outside trying to get into the industry. I still recommend, you know pushing through, still reaching out, networking, and having those conversations.
I think for me, I didn't intern when I was in college. So when I first came out here, I was just trying to find anything really, just entry level anything. And I think what helped me a lot was like going to CTN, going to SIGGRAPH, and meeting a lot of the recruiters there. I think at CTN, most of the studios put together like a production panel or a artist panel. and you can kind of meet the recruiters there. And when you get to meet them, they can put a face to the name. So you're not just another paper on their desk. And I feel like that was the most helpful to me. But also knowing that if and when you get rejected, it's not just you. Keep on trying, you know. I know it's hard, but you can do it.
Yeah, I had one of my friends put it really well. It's, you know, a lot of it is that you kind of have to get lucky sometimes, but you also need to put yourself in a position to be lucky. So that is the going out of your comfort zone and talking to people that you don't know and asking, you know, can you spare 30 minutes of your lunch break to sit on a call with me and have a coffee, or, you know, just share some time. But really, you know, I think the biggest thing is just learning more about what other people are doing. That way you can also figure out along the way what it is that you want to be doing. Because it isn't just, you know, meeting someone and saying, hey, can you give me a job? It's just, you know,
Definitely don't say that.
I don't think that'll be very helpful, but you know, everybody working in this industry has had their own journey, their own path, and you know, something along the way might, you know, you could glean from it and figure that out how it'll work for you. And that is just finding anybody you can connect with.
Yeah, I think it involves persistence and having and standing out. And the more that you persevere through those situations, and someone's going to click onto you, like someone's going to remember you if you keep persisting and putting yourself out there.
And off that, I think what we have to remind ourselves is that this business is a people business, and a lot of businesses are. And for me, and culturally, the word networking is so icky. Is ew, network? Oh, why do I want to network? You know, but I had to reframe it in my mind. It's in that I'm trying to gain knowledge, I'm trying to better myself, but I'm also trying to get to know people and understand them from a human level. And if you can kind of approach it in that way, it's less icky, for one thing, and it's just genuine because you know people want to work with genuine people, and if you can find that pathway into connecting with people in a genuine way, you know, you'll have opportunities come up, you know, and it won't, it may take some time though, you know, obviously, but yeah, I think since this is the Asians in Animation panel, I think culturally we are taught to be humble, but we're in America, baby. I mean, like, you know, land of the free, you know, home of the brave. Let's do it, you know. So that's something, at least for me, is has always been a duality in my mind, you know. Just know when to use it, I guess.
Yeah. I know that I see many resumes come over my desk or portfolios, and the ones that usually will stick out to me are not necessarily those resumes or portfolios, but people that actually have interacted with me, like have reached out after a panel, or like I've met at CTN, or you know, and that they keep in touch with me because I've actually had human interaction with them. I know what their personality is like. It's so much easier to understand as opposed to just reading something about something you don't know, you know, you don't know how that person is or how they can communicate or their personality, which is key in production management. Like, you know, we bring a bunch of personalities together and there are specificities that we look for.
Absolutely. Okay, our next question is from Angela. Being in a production role, what would you say is one important social skill to have to be a successful leader on your team?
What is the skill? I think the skill is communication. I think that is our job, to communicate, to understand, to and that's what managing means, right? So if you're not willing to communicate, if you're, you know, having a if it's hard to deal with personalities, you got to find a way to step away, come back, and just approach it from more of an altruistic perspective, because this is a business of people. It's not a science. It's an organic process, and we grow together.
I mean, and going back to RJ's comment about our culture, you know, having those skills, and if you want to shine as a leader, you need to be more outspoken. And like for me, I grew up the same way, where you be humble, you listen, don't ruffle feathers. So it's always been a challenge for me to have a voice. And until that can truly happen, it'll be a struggle to be seen as a leader, because it's not like, we obviously have relationships and manage the crew and do schedules, but when you move up the ladder, what seems to be more important is having a voice, being able to manage executives, presidents of studios, talent. And in order to do that, you need to be outspoken and have a vision for whatever assignment you're working on.
I would agree. Communication is key for everything. And what RJ and Michelle said are really, really important. On my level as a coordinator, I think something to keep in mind is flexibility. You know, you're trying to support everybody as best as you can, and you never know what the next thing is going to be. And when you hear it, you just got to go and run with it. So the ability not to get bogged down by too much or get caught up by too much, but just be able to take whatever it is in stride and move forward as best as you can, I think really helps, at least when you're starting out or when you first get in, and just try to run as fast as you can.
Exactly what Garrett said, being able to be flexible. I think a lot of times we do have to pivot, and we do have to pivot quickly, but it's the way that we do that. So you can freak out, you can do that, but I think to be successful, you kind of like take in the information, process, okay, what are our next steps?
And then you freak out on the inside.
Yeah.
Always.
I love how we have so many different perspectives in this room. So no matter where you're at in your own career, I think everybody here just gave really great advice to so many different levels. So thank you. Our next question is from Riley. How do you stand out when applying to production assistant roles when you want to be on the production track, but when there's also so many people that use the production assistant roles as gateways into like artistic track roles? I don't know if any of you have experienced that or have insight on that.
I mean, I think there are other ways to get into production other than being a PA. And just from my experience as an assistant, I think it was extremely helpful, because there was a wider scope that I saw. And it happened to be to be the president of the studio, but I was able to understand how a studio works, the communication between our division itself. For Sony, we have Big Sony, what we call it, which is Sony Pictures Entertainment, and all of the people that are involved with supporting Sony Animation, and all the departments that make the studio run was extremely helpful, because once you get into production, you're dealing with the same people.
I think, when looking for opportunities or getting the opportunity for an interview, something really important is just to show that it isn't just another interview or another potential opportunity, but it's something that you really want. And aside from what the studio name is or what the project name is, it's just you want to be working in production. You want to help something grow. And you'll do whatever you can to help that process. If it's, working long hours, late nights, if it's uh, driving miles and miles to get to work, whatever it is, you just want to be present and you want to be helpful. And, I don't know what everybody's pathway is into uh, these jobs, but if you're already thinking, how can I make it as easy for myself as I can, um, then it might not be it might not be the best mentality going in.
Those long drives and long hours don't change. It's like it happens when you're a PA, it happens all the way, I still do it a lot, probably more now.
Yeah. Off of what Garrett said, to answer your question, Riley, it's about being there. It's about being present. And your job is to make the person's job above you easier, and if they don't have to worry about you, then you don't, it doesn't matter if other people are trying to be artists or whatever, they will be that. But if you want to be successful in production, um, if you just have to show up, you just have to be there and be dependable, be communicative. And then when you become a coordinator, when you become a manager and you have people like that, you're like, oh, this is great.
I think being genuine too. Like if you're in an interview, I know interviews can be nerve-wracking, but if you're being genuine, you're saying, I really want to be in production, I want to continue in this path, like that your interviewer will hear that.
Yeah, and just going back to your original question, there are, I did say that you can get into production or studio by being an assistant, but you can also, there's many other ways to work your way into a studio. Like I know here we've hired 2 security guards who worked at the studio for quite some time. And, like we said, we're very open and communicative with people here at the studio. And eventually, they transitioned into having jobs at the studio. So there are different ways outside of being a PA.
Great advice.
And you've heard the mailroom story, I think. Everyone's heard the mailroom story.
Good one.
Yes, definitely. We have another great question from Tiffany here. So first of all, Tiffany wants to thank you all for your time today. Tiffany's curious about everyone's experience managing an overwhelming amount of tasks and people, as production does, and or even different projects at one time, and how you've navigated a full plate as being on production does.
So many Post-its of so many lists. Like right now, I still have my one. And I keep on just making so many of them. My whole desk just is multiple Post-its. And I think when I was at the small studio, I had my multiple Post-its and then I just had the project name on the top. And that was everything that I needed to track for that project. And that way it was easier for me.
Yeah, checklists, calendars, planners, just, my phone doesn't help me anymore. So it really is just I have a giant stack of sticky notes just to make sure that I don't get lost. And writing it all down physically to remember it.
Yes, 100%. Bring a notebook with you wherever you go. If your boss calls you into their office, bring your notebook because they'll tell you 10 things. And if you have to make them repeat yourself, not every boss will repeat themselves. And then you're like, oh no.
And then we're back to the panic later.
Yeah, I definitely didn't do that one time.
RJ, Michelle, any advice on taking on overwhelming tasks, projects, people?
Michelle?
No, go ahead, RJ.
My strategy is just being methodical It's waking up in the morning, looking at the plan, knowing the plan will not work today, but at least having a basic understanding of what the plan is for the day. And then just task by task, you know. And then yeah, I think that's the best way to do it, in small bites. Because if you try to take it on as a whole, you're going to drive yourself crazy.
Agree.
Awesome. Okay, so here's our next question. So Domi, and I apologize if I pronounce that wrong, is asking, can you give an overview of the animation pipeline and how does it differ from series to feature?
I can give a quick one for TV. Here's the pipeline. It's 4 sections. You start with development, then you go into pre-production, and then you go into production, which is like principal photography in live action, and then you go into post. And in those 4 sections, different teams will be working different elements, but basically development is where you want to figure out your story. Pre-production is where you're fleshing your story out via storyboards and animatics and design. And then production is when you're actually creating the shots. And then post is when you put it all together, make it beautiful, make it sing.
It's the same for feature.
Awesome. And from a production management perspective, would you say, if you're PA on a feature film and a PA on a series, would you say tasks are about the same, flows about the same?
I think it's dependent on the show, like in the crew. Like for me, like I want to give my team opportunity. So, we encourage, most of our rooms are very open. We encourage people from all departments to attend when appropriate for like daily reviews. So, we want everyone to be exposed to different departments so they can try to understand what their interests might be. Also, we also give other opportunities like taking notes in meetings and filling in and helping out the other production management team so that they have exposure to the pipeline and to hopefully help them navigate what they want to do in the future.
Yeah, there are a couple of ways to manage TV. One is departmental and one is episodic. And just the significant difference between those is if you were in a departmental show and you were a design coordinator, or if you were a story coordinator or editorial coordinator, you would only see those sections, those departments, and have limited interaction with the departments before and after that. But if what I like to do is I like to hire episodic coordinators that would take the script all the way down to post, so that they gain this knowledge of just the whole pipeline, and it helps them understand what is needed from each department and how it flows through the pipeline. So, in a couple of years, they can move on to any studio. They can pretty much get any job. And yeah, I've been part of post, I've been part of production, I've been part of scripts, whatever. So yeah, that's my method.
I love it. That is really good advice. I'm going to take that myself. All right, next question here is from Shivani. Sometimes I feel extremely awkward approaching a recruiter to make that first connection. What do you think is the best way to approach a recruiter or making animation/industry connections in general?
I think RJ said it earlier, like reframing it in your mind that it's not like you're just reaching out to a recruiter, because sometimes that's really daunting. I know for me, I had to reframe it to I just trying to meet a person and they're just another person and we're just going to have a conversation, because that for me tones down that anxiety. I feel like when you say like I need to reach out to this recruiter, it's just like, oh God, a very formal email. But no, you're just talking to someone.
And that's what we're looking for, really. We're looking for your personality. Like the number of resumes that we get, there's a lot of people that are qualified, but there's always the ones that will stand out.
Garrett, RJ, any additional thoughts?
I think aside from, you know, where I would sit in reaching out to people, I would also try to hope that I could be a good connection for them too. Um, you know, it's when you're networking, as that word, I kind of hate to say that word, but when you're reaching out, you know, I think it gets intimidating when you think about like, oh, I hope they can help me, or I hope it can move into something else. But it's part of what I think about it whenever I get the chance to meet somebody or to connect with a new person is just, you know, I hope I can be helpful for them one day too. Um, uh, because this whole thing is just about reciprocating relationships. Um, so I think it, one, helps them look a little less daunting, but also gives you that confidence of like, no, I have something to offer to other people as well. Just as RJ said, we have to be brave, you know?
Yeah, and off that, maybe not start with a recruiter, honestly, because that is daunting. So Asians in animation, there's a group out there. You connect with people, you be curious about people, you know, like when you're in this zone of like, I got to get a job, you're only thinking about yourself, but really like there's a whole world out there. So be curious about people, learn about them, you know, see if you jive. And from again, from there, you do that enough and
Mhm.
you might meet a recruiter through somebody, you might or you're gonna, you know, cold query somebody and it's just you've already done it a bunch of times, so it's okay, you know.
Yeah, we meet a lot of people. Like I know when I'm looking to fill a position, you know, I'll ask the fellow producers and on other shows, and it's like, you know, many times they've reached out to me, say, hey, you know, I met this person at SeaGraph, and you know, I've kept in touch with them over the years. I still think they're looking, and I think they're really great. So, you know, I think it'd be great for you to check them out. So, you know, it's all about just, you know, networking.
Creating a community, I would say.
Yep.
Amazing. And I'm glad you brought it back to Asians in animation because that is a great community to start off with as well. So our next question is from Kwan. Apologies if I mispronounced that as well. What is the best career advice you received while working in animation? And I know a lot of you, you know, haven't always been in animation. So I guess in general, best career advice you've gotten.
There's like so many.
Trying to figure out how to word it. It's like, don't try to move up too fast either. It's just like, not, I don't want to say enjoy, it's making sure that you have that experience and you're present in your experience before you move up. I know for me, I felt like I moved up really quickly between PA and PC. And I wish that I had gotten a chance to spend more time as a PA, mainly because I feel like there are certain mistakes that I could have made as a PA that if I made as a PC had way more of a ripple effect. And I feel like as a PA, if you're able to learn in that role, make that mistake, learn from it, and then move up, it's not as much of a bigger deal, if that makes sense.
I have a magical word for everybody. And that word is colleague. So when you look at somebody and they've got vice president, you know, TV series, they are your colleague. A production assistant is your colleague. An intern is your colleague. The president of SPA is your colleague. And what that does for you culturally, you know, again, we deal with this thing, but what that does for you is put you on an even plane and makes you understand you are equal. You are also a human being just like the other person.
Yeah, I think something that I'm seeing more now is, you know, don't don't chase or don't be like loyal to a place or a project, but be loyal to the people around you. Um, those are the ones that are gonna have more of an effect just on you personally. Um, I I don't remember every every note session from my last job, but I remember the team that I was with and going through it all together. And you know, that's more impactful and more long-standing moving forward.
I agree with everyone's comments, and additionally, I think you just have to work hard. Like, you really have to shine. You really, and when I first got into the industry, feeling a little bit, it was hard to, animation is very complicated, and not, feeling overwhelmed. My boss, who was still one of my mentors, she told me that, Michelle, you're gonna have to work really hard, and you need to reach out and understand animation as well as you can. Like, she asked me if I understood what a cost report was, what the budget meant, and I obviously didn't, and she recommended that you take that home, you read it, and come back with questions, whether it's for me or for anyone else. So don't be shy, and I think everyone probably knows that you just have to really work hard, and you will stand out.
Absolutely. I think our next question really relates to this question, but from Adrian. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time and give advice to yourself starting out, what would you say, and would you change anything in your journey?
I would say, um, don't don't limit yourself to that one department or one um, perspective or one show or whatever. I feel like the world is very big. This industry is very big. There's a lot of things to do, and and uh, I'll just take myself for an example. I get comfortable. I'm like, now I know everything about this job, and I'm just gonna sit here and do it. But uh, I think that mentality doesn't allow for growth as much. And so if you constantly remind yourself to stay uncomfortable, I guess, you would allow yourself to grow more. Um, which I learned in the past, like, I don't know, 7 years, something. But when I started out, I was like, this is it. This is all I'm gonna do, you know.
I would think not everything is going to work out the way that I see it in my mind, and that's okay. Um, I was finishing school. I had all these dreams of, I'm gonna get a job and I'm gonna be doing this, and all of it's gonna just fall into place the way that I hope and pray for it. But yeah, it's the changes and the unexpected things that really have made it wonderful. Um, so embrace that crazy, and even if the day feels like it's on fire, it won't burn down. Everything's gonna be fine.
I think I would tell past me to don't rush, really enjoy the journey and just experience everything as a whole.
Yeah, I think for me too, I feel the same as Sarah. Like, I came across the same situation, and I feel like, my younger self, I felt like naive in the way where I thought I knew everything, and felt like I could grow, move up on the ladder a lot quicker. But I didn't, and I still don't. And you have to just keep an open mind to learning. I sit every day I come into the office, I sit there with my co-producer, we look at each other and we're like, holy shit, like, we've never experienced this before, like, what are we gonna do? And it happens almost daily.
Thank you so much, Michelle, RJ, Sarah, Garrett. This has been an amazing panel. We've gotten a lot of love in the chat from everybody just saying how insightful your advice has been. So huge shout out to you all, and thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge. If we didn't get to your questions today, don't worry. The recruiting team at Sony has been collecting all your questions, and we'll use them for future recruiter tips on Sony Picture Animation's LinkedIn page. So be sure to follow them. So thank you all for attending this panel. We look forward to seeing you at the final talk next week. And so again, thank you everybody, Michelle, RJ, Garrett, Sarah, and everybody here. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
I also want to say that, oh, is it done? Are people still here?
Some people
We're
are
still here.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I just want to say that I am open to people emailing me with questions. I'm happy to answer them by email. Just keep in mind that it may take a moment because I'm very busy sometimes, but I'm happy to give any advice outside of today's session.
Yes, happy to connect on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am also open to people emailing Michelle for questions.
Archie, how about you email me a question?
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. And actually everyone here, feel free to find them on LinkedIn. And thanks again, everybody. Enjoy.
Everyone.
Bye.